Hello, and welcome again to another Conservative Historian video. This one entitled, The Purpose of the University. I'm Bel Avis. When a person in the United States has a child, they are immediately filled with a dream. That dream has that parent sitting in an audience. Their son or daughter are in front of that audience, and they're wearing robes. They have a hat that has a little tassel on it. That son or daughter then walks up onto the stage. They receive a piece of paper, a diploma, and then they take that tassel and move it from one side of the hat to another. Thus, they are launched into a career. They are launched into their adulthood in that magical moment. But let us ask ourselves, what happens in those preceding years that so prepares that child for their future, for the next 60 years of their lives? The purpose of the university fundamentally exists for 4 different reasons. The first is to obtain a skill that could then be applied to that career and maybe to life itself. The second is that social networking. They meet in people, friends, maybe even future spouses that will become vital to their life in adulthood. The third is sports. Most colleges obtain funding, alumni support, and even some students attend the colleges based upon their sporting programs. And the fourth is they are supposed to learn critical thinking skills that could be applied not just to a career, not just to a job, but to all manner of choices throughout their adult lives. Those 4 things: skills, social, sports, and critical thinking. Those are primarily the 4 reasons upon why parents within the United States spend tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars and incur loads of debt in order to obtain that degree. So let's break down each of these pieces. The skills piece. Bryan Caplan, who has commented on education, especially at the higher level, for years now, had a very interesting game. And this is what he asked. If a student could have a choice, they either could get the degree from Princeton or they could attend Princeton classes but not get the degree. Now, the person getting the degree gets no Princeton classes. They skip the whole 4 years and just, here's your diploma, off you go. Which one would that student take? Which one would the parents recommend that they take? Because the obtaining of skills in most regards, in most majors, is ephemeral. It doesn't really exist. You're not really learning skills that would be applicable. I myself have a business degree. I myself have a master's in business. And most of the skills that I learned in my master classes were not actually applicable to my business career directly. I learned things like stats and chi-square analysis, but in my business, I never used them. That's endemic throughout so much of the academy. In other words, that person would take the degree. Now, you can't get jobs, most jobs, without that degree. Caplan called it signaling. And I think that's really interesting, that the degree signals to potential employers about the value of the person who holds the degree. Not necessarily whether they learned those skills well enough, but that they did something enough to get that piece of paper, that magical piece of paper handed to them on the stage as the proud parent gazes on. Now, this is not to say that certain STEM skills are not incredibly important. I would not want to be treated by a doctor or a nurse who didn't get necessary training, who didn't get that critical undergraduate education or even the master's education. But STEM comprises around 15% of all majors throughout the university. Business comprises another big chunk. But as I have said before, much that's learned in the business school is not necessarily directly applicable to jobs or careers that graduate will obtain later. So I question that skills piece of it. So let's move on to the second. social networking. As I broadcast this, this is September of 2020. There is not a lot of social networking on campuses because of COVID. But even so, the presumption is that somehow you're going to build these lifelong bonds of friendship. Well, that is the case in many regards. But is that really something? Is that really to go to that kegger or to do a road trip in spring with those individuals? Is that worth tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars? And can there not be several other platforms that social networking can occur, especially in an age of the internet? The third is sports. I almost call this an unholy alliance, that I believe that sports warps colleges, that the funding, the focus, the interest, the attention of all of the individual resources against these sports tends to be a detriment to the fundamental academic pursuits of the rest of the campus. And here's a challenge. People say that, well, they take all that sports money and then give it to the rest of the university. Check it out. That is actually not true. Most of the money obtained, and there's really only two revenue sports. One is football, the other is basketball. What those dollars do is they fund other sports in some regards, but often it goes back into the program. Take the most successful football program in the history of college, the University of Alabama. The University of Alabama recently put in a $10 million training facility and poured in $90 million to refurbish their stadium. Plus, their coach makes $10 million. He's the highest paid guy in the state by a factor of 10x or whatever number you might be using. And his assistants also, in many regards, are seven-figure salaries. Or even barring that, some of them make $300,000. Often the money from the sports programs goes back into the sports program. It does not fundamentally enhance all of the other activities on the campus. So sports kind of warps the whole college experience. And let's take the NHL. Hockey is not one of those revenue-producing items within the academy. But hockey, an average team sold about 25 years ago for $250 million. Those teams now sell for $1 billion. Hockey has expanded significantly. There's more NHL teams now in existence than ever has been before, and hockey does not rely on college. Neither does Major League Baseball. They have their own farm systems that bring them up. It's just football and basketball. The NFL and the NBA, who essentially use college as almost a minor league farm system to groom future recruits to their teams. This should not be. It's warping the college experience. And the fourth piece, the most critical piece, and that is critical thinking. But students aren't learning critical thinking anymore. They're learning ideological indoctrination. As has been said on many pieces throughout the Conservative Historian, I've said it on podcasts, said it on other videos. Right now the ratio of liberal professors to conservative professors is roughly, conservatively, 15-1. And what are they learning in there? For one example is Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow. This is not a comprehensive analysis of slavery or the Jim Crow program. This is indoctrination with a purely leftist perspective. That's just but one example. You know, I could go on and on and on about the ideological domination of the left upon the campus. There is no critical thinking. This is the way you think. This is how it is. Critical race theory dominates, and you better write like this or you're not going to get a good grade, and therefore you're not going to get that magic piece of paper that signals to potential employers about your worth. So, the university exists to train skills, though it's really a minority of people who actually need the skills being trained within the university. The real point of the university is to get that piece of paper so you're signaling. There are many, many ways to obtain that kind of social interaction that colleges boast. I've talked a little bit about sports. And most importantly, colleges are not teaching critical thinking today. They're teaching indoctrination. So let's ask ourselves that question. Let's ask those dreaming parents with that little 5-year-old son or daughter, what is the purpose of the university in 2020?